Speedrunners have found a glitch in Pokemon FireRed that uses Mr. Mime and Farfetch'd to corrupt the game's code, which then lets them perform a credits warp. It's the first major glitch to be found in FireRed in 17 years and lets them skip 6 gyms and the Elite Four. And today, we'll be going over the setup and breaking down how it works. So grab a compost bin and strap in for the wildest Pokemon speedrun ever performed. It takes some time to set up the credits warp, so the run begins with the most important choice in any game, the starting Pokemon. Instead of making the objectively correct decision and picking Charmander, a Squirtle is selected as Water-type starters in Generation 3 have a key ability, Torrent. Torrent increases the power of Water-type moves by 50% when the user is at or below 1/3 HP. We'll see why this is important shortly, because we're not picking just any Squirtle. Squirtles come in all shapes and sizes, and the initial values of their starting stats will vary due to RNG, but we need our Squirtle to be good at 2 things, surviving and hitting hard. Because Squirtle has a low special attack range, this limits the pool of viable Squirtles significantly, as not only do we need a high special attack, we also need a nature that promotes special attack growth. Getting a Squirtle with these specific requirements naturally is a 1.5% chance, but this would require hundreds of resets, so instead, we're going to manipulate the RNG with the help of 2 programs. First, we are going to enter the desired stats and natures we want on our Squirtle into the Starter Manip program, which finds the frames that this Squirtle will occur on. And second, we're going to take one of these frames and enter it into the flow timer, which starts a countdown. Since Squirtle's stats are decided on the frame you confirm your selection, the flow timer is designed to produce audio cues that help you confirm Squirtle on the frame with the good stats. And now that we have our Juggernaut Squirtle, we can make our way to performing the credits warp. There's one big problem, however, the first gym, and after getting to level 8, we head to Pewter City to defeat Brock. This gym is quite terrifying as our HP is in the red to bring the bonus damage from Torrent online, and the first trainer has one of the most dangerous Pokemon in the entire run, Sandshrew. Because of Torrent, we can knock the Sandshrew out in 2 hits, but it's not beating the Sandshrew that's a problem, it's what it does to us during the fight. It has 2 moves, Sand Attack and Scratch. If it chains Sand Attack, the fight can drag out, so the best thing it can do is open with Scratch, which lets us secure the fight in 2 or 3 turns, depending on if it missed. If it landed a Scratch, we need to Potion because Brock's Onix has Rock Tomb, which kills us if we stay at low HP. This means that Torrent is no longer active, so we need to tank some damage from Onix to reactivate it, which will make the fights in Mount Moon a lot easier. The trainers in Mount Moon aren't very difficult, and we only beat certain ones as we don't need many levels to beat Misty. And once we leave, we catch a level 10 Ekans for reasons we'll discuss in just a bit. Misty needs to be beaten for progression reasons, but she also gives us a TM for Water Pulse, which is powerful enough on its own that we no longer need the bonus from Torrent. So we use it to steamroll through the rival fight and Nugget Bridge, then arrive at the first key part of the credits warp, this patch of grass. The grass itself isn't special, but the Abra that has a 15% chance of appearing in the grass is, as we're going to trade it for a Mr. Mime later in the game. The random number generator in FireRed is complex enough that we can't perform a manipulation to force an Abra encounter on the fly, so we do the next best thing and use the repel trick to increase our odds. Using a repel doesn't stop wild Pokemon from appearing entirely. In Gen 3, it only stops encounters with Pokemon that have a lower level than the lead Pokemon from appearing. Since the Ekans we caught is level 10, this means that 6 of the possible 9 Pokemon that can appear in this grass are removed from the pool. This does remove the level 9 Abra from the pool, but we've now went from a 15% chance of seeing an Abra to a 21.5% chance, and it has the added bonus of being at least level 11. As the level of our Mr. Mime will match the level of the Abra we trade for it. After bulldozing a single trainer in Route 6, we're now at Vermilion City, and the first thing we're going to do is go and trade our newly acquired Abra. But there is a problem. We need to go through the Diglett Cave, and there is a chance we encounter a Dugtrio. Due to their higher level, Repel won't work, and if the Dugtrio has the Arena Trap ability, which prohibits you from running, the encounter can be very time-consuming. And to make things worse, they have Dig, which is a multi-turn attack. But when you get through the cave, the hero of the run gets to shine. Since Mr. Mime is only level 11, we need to power level him to 33 so that he will learn Recycle, a crucial move for the credits warp. But before we explain that, we have some leveling to do. The Ananan is a great place to get experience, and there's one fight in particular that's worth looking at, the rival. Mr. Mime is a low level comparatively, so it doesn't fight every Pokemon, but there are two things that give it an edge in the fights it does take. Same type attack bonus with its confusion attack, and the substitute move, as it messes with the game's battle AI big time. Since Mr. Mime shares a type with the move Confusion, it gets a same type attack bonus, or stab, which increases the move's damage by a 1.5 multiplier. So if a move would do 20 damage and the Pokemon using it has a stab bonus, it now does 30. This wreaks havoc on the rival's Ivysaur since it's weak to Psychic type, but Substitute really pushes it over the top. The Pokemon using Substitute decreases its HP by 25% of its max and creates a doll with that amount of HP. The doll will tank damage for the user along with preventing status conditions, which is great for the Ivysaur fight. Since Ivysaur is level 20, it knows Sleep and Poison Powder, Leech Seed, and Vine Whip. 3 of these moves inflict status effects, which is perfect for us because the battle AI isn't coded to look at the doll's HP. It's actually still looking at Mr. Mime's HP, despite it not being the active Pokemon. Because of this, it doesn't see an easy kill with its only damaging move, Vine Whip, so it puts a higher priority on casting one of the 3 status effect moves, which the Substitute is immune to. This lets Mr. Mime land confusion after confusion for a safe battle, despite being at a lower level, which gets us off the Ananan and on to the next part of the run. We still need to level Mr. Mime, but with Magical Leaf being picked up at level 22, there's nothing that gives us much of a problem, so we power level our way to Route 16, where the next key Pokemon of the route will be encountered, Spearow. Spearow is required because we need to trade it for Farfetch'd, and once it's caught, we head back to Vermilion City and trade it for our beloved leak-wielding duck. We need Farfetch'd to learn Knockoff, but since the Spearow we caught is 22, it will already know the move when we trade for it. We then feed Mr. Mime a few rare candies so it learns Recycle, and we now have everything we need for the Credits Warp. You're probably thinking, how are we going to do a Credits Warp with Recycle and Knockoff? And the answer is by breaking the game's held item system. To accomplish this, we're going to enter a doubles battle, but before we do, we're going to make sure that Mr. Mime is holding a Retro Mail and that another of our Pokemon is holding an Oranberry. We'll start the battle with Farfetch'd and the Pokemon holding the Oranberry, then make sure that the berry holder gets low enough to use it. Once this happens, we'll swap it out for Mr. Mime, and then the fun begins. We're going to have Farfetch'd use Knockoff on Mr. Mime, which gets rid of its held item for the battle. Then we're going to have Mr. Mime use Recycle, which should let it regain the Retro Mail it just dropped. Except it gets the Oranberry back instead, and this is where the magic happens. When a held item is used in a doubles battle, the game writes that item to the used held items array. If you don't know what an array is, it's just the name of a data structure used to store similar items in memory. So in this case, it's the used held items from the doubles battle. The used held items array has a bug, however. It only keeps track of the Pokemon on the field. So if you switch the Pokemon that used the Oranberry with a new Mon, the used held item doesn't get cleared from the array. So the game then thinks that the Oranberry we used earlier was used by Mr. Mime, who just entered the battle. When Farfetch'd uses Knockoff, this gets rid of Mr. Mime's Retro Mail, which should be temporary. But we then have Mr. Mime use Recycle, which lets the user regain a held item. The game currently thinks that Mr. Mime's used held item was the Oranberry, since that's what it sees in the array. So when we use Recycle, it overwrites the Retro Mail permanently with the Oranberry. This may not seem like a big deal on the face of it, but the Retro Mail exists in a spot in memory that touches the box storage system. And since we just wrote over it with an Oranberry, it has now become so broken that we can manipulate the code of the game itself by editing the names of storage boxes on the PC. Before we can do this, we need to break one more data structure by giving every Pokemon in our party a Retro Mail to hold. Because mail take up a lot of memory, the game doesn't store them with the Pokemon data. Instead, it puts the mail into the held mail array. When we wrote over Mr. Mime's Retro Mail, the game didn't remove it from the held mail array, so when we give mail to all of our Pokemon, this breaks the array. And as mentioned previously, the Retro Mail in the array exists next to the box storage system in memory, so we can now edit the game's code by messing with box names. We are going to write a Credits Warp payload in the box system that calls the function for starting the Hall of Fame sequence, then turn Mr. Mime into a glitched Pokemon with a species name that is too long for the game to read. When the game tries to read the corrupted species name, it ends up being instructed to execute our credits warp, and to have it read the species name, all we need to do is swap it with the Pokemon next to it in the box twice. And congratulations, we've just beat Pokemon FireRed by composting a berry and turning it into a piece of mail. The current world record for this speedrun is 1 hour and 25 minutes by Ananan. It can go lower as he ran into trouble catching the Abra and Spearow. Otherwise, the run was very well executed with minimal problems, but who knows what the future has in store now that we can alter the game itself with Mr. Mime and Farfetch'd. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next exciting episode of Abyssoft Z.